Hello, I'm Catherine Maguire. Welcome to the Soul Alchemist Podcast, where each week I share wisdom, inspiration, and practical tools to help you alchemize the places you are feeling stuck or you're playing small or holding back so that you can connect to the essence of who you truly are and live a joyous and magical life. Thanks for choosing to come along and hang out with me today. It's lovely to have you here. Before we start into this week's podcast, a couple of little housekeeping things. The first one being, if you have emailed me in approximately the last 3 weeks and have not received a reply, it's because I've been having email issues and I have not received your email. So if you emailed me about a one-to-one session, a soul session, about my mentoring program, if you had a question for the podcast, or maybe something completely different, something else, and you haven't heard back, could you please reach out again? And email me at Catherine@catherinemaguire.com and I will get back to you as soon as possible. And I apologize. I apologize for any confusion. I wasn't ignoring you or trying to be rude. I just didn't get the email. But we are back in email flow again. So all is well. And the other thing I wanted to share with you today is that all the podcast episodes are now available on YouTube. So if you're not a huge fan of podcast apps or downloading podcasts or that sort of thing, they're now on YouTube. So if you go over to YouTube, there's a full podcast playlist and you can just hit play and listen to your heart's content. I will put the YouTube link in the episode description below. And yeah, head on over there if you prefer YouTube, or if there's someone in your life that would prefer YouTube, please share it with them. And if you do listen on YouTube, please leave me a little comment so I'm not over there all on my own. And if you hit the subscribe icon, the bell on a Wednesday when the episode goes live on YouTube, you will get a little notification to say it's there so you can listen to each new episode as it comes along. Feels great. It feels like an expansion, feels like the next step of our podcast evolution together and our next step of soul alchemy out into the world, which is lovely. Okay, so today I want to talk about the power of stillness and why we often resist it. So here in the mountains, so I live in a little medieval village that is quite literally perched on top of a mountain within a mountain range. And one of the things I love about living here is that the rhythm of life is very seasonal. So we've just come out of, the season of summer where the days are long and bright and there's lots of activity and, people are up really early in the morning to get things done in their gardens or in their life before the heat of the day. And then people are out late at night because it's cooler at night. So they're either out hanging out in the piazza or the kids are playing, or, some of the younger ones are down at the beach parties late into the night, into the wee small hours of the next day. And it's a very high energy, yang, out there social season. And it's gorgeous. And that season has changed. You can feel the rhythm has changed. The rains have come, the leaves are falling off the trees. There's sweet chestnuts on the trees. There's walnuts on the trees. There's hazelnuts. There's the persimmons. There's all the autumn fruits. And people have started to wind back indoors. People, the evenings are getting dark earlier and colder, and people are inside in their house in the evenings. You can see the wood smoke coming from the chimneys at nighttime. And it's a much more yin, it's a much more inward turning, internal period of time. And it does take a little adjustment, to go from that high energy of summer into that more introverted energy of autumn. But I love that. I love that about living here, that, life so beautifully reflects the shift in seasons. It really speaks to me. It really speaks to my soul. It really feels good in my nervous system, that cyclical nature of life. And stillness in this season is part of things. I was there last night sitting in front of the fire watching the flames, and I was just thinking about stillness and thinking about in that moment just how beautiful it was just to be there with the flames, but also thinking about we can really resist being still. And part of it's our own doing. Sometimes it's partly as well the rhythm of what I'm going to call the modern world or modern life is very fast. And there's a kind of you get stuck. It's like you get stuck in fifth gear, like you're always going. And then when you get into bed at night, you're tired, but then your dream time or your rest time is processing everything that you went through during the day. So even your rest time is quite busy, or you're processing things. We're visual people. So, things that you were looking at on the TV or social media or whatever, that all has to get processed through your psyche as you sleep. So you can often then end up waking up tired and not rested. So we live in a world where the pace is fast unless we choose to step out of that pace or to do something different. And we can consciously choose to live a slower pace, even if the world around us is going fast. We can make choices. We can make choices to, march to the beat of our own drum, find our own rhythm in that. And I don't say that as a criticism. I'm just saying that as it is possible. I'm really blessed. I've made this life where I live somewhere where I'm in this beautiful, slower rhythm, but it is possible to do it wherever we are. If we make some choices to slow it down and find a different gear, come from that fifth gear down to maybe fourth, and then into third and second, and maybe even hang out in first for a while, and then slip yourself into neutral a bit and be still and rest. And it's important. We need that still time. Our nervous system needs us to be still. To recalibrate, our nervous system really needs a pause, a stillness, so it can rest, it can process, it can discharge, refuel, and allow us to feel revitalized again. Otherwise, we feel, we're going around. It's almost like it's like you've had 10 coffees. You're wired all the time. Maybe you have had 10 coffees. Our nervous system really needs that time to slow down and to come into alignment. And, the modern pace of life is not natural to us, in that humans have been on the earth, and it depends on who you read or what you read. But I think we can all agree that it's been millions and millions of years. Some will say 2 million, some will say 6 million, but we've been here a long time. And this faster pace has really come about as a result of the Industrial Revolution, which is only since the 1800s, So in the grand scheme of the human evolution, of millions of years on the earth and a few hundred years of the Industrial Revolution, this fastness, this quickening is it's a breath in the timeline of our evolution. And our bodies haven't really caught up to that. It's not how we're wired. It's not how we're designed. And even things like, electrical lights in our house back in the day, before, there was gas light and before there was electrical light, and even a candlelight, because even with candlelight, candles were expensive and they didn't give a lot of light. So, what you did in the evenings, maybe some people tried to read by candlelight or sew by candlelight. It wasn't good for your eyes, but most people rested in the darker time of the year. They rested. And I think a lot of people feel that natural inclination to hibernate this time of year and draw within, get into the snuggly clothes, get into the snuggly pajamas, get into the snuggly bed. And it's to really give yourself to that. Your being needs it. But one of the things that's really important about stillness is, if you are listening to this podcast, you are on some sort of a personal growth or a spiritual growth journey. And I'm guessing that you're listening along because you're trying to move those obstacles, alchemize those obstacles or those blocks or those woundings that are stopping you from being your true self, your full potential. And there can be, inner work and be work. But as part of that journey, we also need stillness. We need rest to integrate everything that we've done, to allow it to settle, to allow ourselves to rewire and get used to, the next evolution of who we are. But also stillness is so important because the voice of your being, the voice of your soul, your inner wisdom, whatever you call it, whatever name you put on it, is a slow, quiet voice. And you can only hear it and listen to it properly if you are still, because it needs space. It can't compete with the loudness of the internet or the loudness of social media or the loudness of the radio in the car or whatever the the noises or the loudness of your own thoughts. It needs a quiet space to speak to you and to be heard. And, we're all on this journey of growth together. And I like to think of it as a tree. And I know I've used this metaphor before, but, of the branches, of the trunk, and of the roots. So for me, the branches are that bit of us, that are going out into the world. This is, the outward facing expression of me. It's like branches are, in season terms, summer, they're that out, here I am, leaves, fruit, everything, it's like, ooh, here I am. Then we have the trunk, which is that centering point of ourselves, the center of our being, and the roots that go deep down into the soil. And they're the winter, they're in the dark, they're underneath. And they keep us grounded. And if we are constantly working on ourselves, constantly striving, constantly trying to be our true self, be our full potential, whatever that is, we're stretching out into the branches. But if we do that too much, what happens is our branches become top heavy and we'll fall over. There's too much weight up there, right? And our tree falls over. The tree of our being falls over and crashes to the ground. And that's often where people burn out. Like you can burn out doing inner work because you're doing too much of it and you haven't given yourself time to rest and integrate and be still and listen for what needs to happen next. Okay, we keep forcing, pushing, and applying the rhythm of the modern world to our personal growth journey or to our spiritual journey. All right. So this season of autumn and winter is an opportunity to come down into the roots of our being and maybe not do anything, maybe just hang out there. Maybe hang out there and go, this is who I am. And I'm going to get comfortable with me, as I am now in this moment, and not try to turn yourself into anything else. And so notice what happens in your being when I say that. Do you start to freak out? Do you start to get a bit panicked? Or does part of you go, oh my God, I so need a rest? All right. So if we rest and allow ourselves to integrate and give ourselves to the potency of stillness, because there's such power in stillness, our roots get deeper, we get more centered into who we are. And then we know ourselves. We know who we are in this moment. We know who we are in this life phase. And we can hear that quiet voice within. And interestingly, that's why the podcast has gone up on YouTube, because I've really been myself embracing that stillness of late. And, the season really helps because I can sit of an evening and just sit in front of the fire and be with the fire. And that's where that voice came up from. It's like YouTube. And, my logical mind can go, oh my God, YouTube, technology, how am I going to figure this out? This is going to be complicated, the whole thing. But the voice was really clear. And actually, it wasn't hard. My hubby's been away. He's back from Ireland. He's really good at that sort of thing, at tech. And I just said to him, I really want to do this thing. And he sat down with me. And in the space of a couple of hours, it was all there. It needs a bit, fine tuning and tweaking and stuff like that. But it's done. It's done. And it's only in that quietness we hear the next step. And sometimes we're afraid to be still because we're afraid of hearing the voice. We're absolutely terrified of what it's going to tell us. And it may not be something bad. It may not be that, it's telling you to look at your shadow or look at your wounding or anything like that. It may be actually speaking to you about your light, about your potentiality, about your essence, about that, embodiment of the fullness of who you are. And sometimes we are more afraid of our light than we are of our dark. But we can only meet the light if we're willing to be still, because it's in the stillness we get to meet ourselves. So, I've been doing this work a long time. I've been doing this work for 25 years. And the thing I will say to you is, if you're afraid of being still, ask yourself why. And the thing I will say to you is, your being, that quiet, still voice inside you, always and only offers you the one next step. I have rarely seen in my own life or with my clients that it goes, okay, here's the end game. We're going to go from 0 to hero. I've never seen that. You may have ideas a sense, a feeling of something inside you that feels big. But the actual step, that small voice, that quiet voice, that true voice will give you is just the one next step. One next actionable step. And then you take that step and you're still and you listen, and it will give you the next step. So the fear is often about the bigness of the journey, the vastness of the expansion. But the small, quiet, true voice is always one step. And in a world that is so loud and so busy and with so much information, misinformation, confusing information, all those things, you will only ever know your truth, your real truth, not what's in your mind, but your actual truth of your being, your felt body sense, if you allow yourself to be still. And if you've been taking a journey with me on this podcast, you know, I'm really big on authenticity, and I'm really big on personal sovereignty, to be the king or queen of your own realm, the realm of your being. And last week, you know, we were talking about the queen and the king. You can only be sovereign if you're still, because it's the stillness that allows you to connect to the essence of yourself. So my invitation to you today is to take a dance, take a walk, be curious about stillness. What's your relationship with stillness? Do you like it? Do you avoid it? If you avoid it, why? Interestingly, if you're very comfortable with it, maybe you need a little bit of yang, a little bit of movement. Maybe you need to act on some of that, you know, that gold that you've accrued in the stillness. But most people are very resistant to being still. And it's our natural state. We've just unlearned it due to the pace of the world. Okay. So if you'd like to step into stillness, I'm going to give you some ideas, some things you can practice. And really, stepping into stillness is an invitation to meet yourself. So here's a few really simple, beautiful things that you can do. Pick a sit spot. And a sit spot is somewhere that you sit. So that can be somewhere in your living room. If you want to look at the fire, if you want to look out at a window, out onto the street, if you want to sit somewhere in nature, sit in your garden, if you have a porch, maybe you want to sit on that. But pick a sit spot, somewhere that is your spot to sit. And if you can, sit there for a little bit, even 5 minutes at the same time every day. It's not essential that it's the same time every day. But what happens is you create a relationship with the quiet voice within you that you show up at the same time every day. And you do nothing. You don't think, you don't meditate, you don't go through your to-do list. You sit and you watch. So if you're sitting in your living room looking out your window, just look out on the street. Notice who's going by. Maybe notice nature if there's any nature. Just notice. Maybe there's a cat walking up the street. If you're sitting in your garden, just look around. Notice the leaves. But don't get into the story of anything. Don't make up a story or start to get into a to-do list. Just watch. And every day as you show up, you will notice something a little different. You will notice a change. You will notice a subtle shift. And that allows the quiet voice within you, your soul voice, your essence voice, your God voice, whatever you want to call it, to know that, every morning at 11 o'clock, Catherine's going to be here with her coffee. So if I want to talk to her, that's when I'll get her. So the universe, your soul, your being knows how it can find you. You're not running around like a busy ant, you know, or like a hamster on a wheel all day. It's like, I know how to get her. She's been talking to me. She's been meditating. She's been praying to me. She's been asking me questions. That's when I can deliver my response. Okay, so a sit spot is a lovely way to do it. Bring your cup of tea, bring your cup of coffee, glass of water, whatever it is you want to do. Be cozy. 5 minutes. If you get comfortable with 5 minutes, maybe you can go up to 10. Maybe on the weekend or your day off, you could go up to 20 minutes or half an hour, but just sit. Give yourself the gift of sitting. So choose a sit spot, make it comfy, and enjoy. All right. Another thing you can do is practice slowing down and practice trying not to fill the space. So that can be in a conversation where you rush in to fill the space. You rush in to answer. It's like slow down, listen, And get comfortable with silence. Get comfortable with the silence in the conversation. Get comfortable with the awkward moments, because silence creates uncomfortableness because we're not used to it. But if you can get comfortable with the uncomfortableness of the silence, often out of the silence, a new idea, a new inspiration, or a new route for a conversation emerges. So get comfortable with the uncomfortableness of silence in a conversation. All right. And the other thing you can do is just sit and be with your body, be present with your body. So you might do this in the morning before you get out of bed, or at night before you go to sleep. Just be with your body and feel your body. What's going on? What are the sensations? What are the sensations as you're lying there being still? What are the sensations going on in your body? Because that's often how our being talks to us, through sensations. It's not always language. It's not always words. Sometimes it's images. Sometimes it's sounds, it's sensations, it's smells. But same, get comfortable being with your body. And the beautiful thing about being with your body, if you take a few minutes at the start or the end of the day to be with it, it knows you're listening, and then it doesn't have to get your attention with an ache or a pain or a strain or something acute, nausea or whatever that is. All right. So if you take your time to be with your body, it has time to talk to you and be heard. So try some of them this week. Try some of those moments of stillness. See what your relationship with stillness is. Do you like it? Are you afraid of it? Do you think you're too busy to make time for it? It takes 5 minutes. If you want to explore it and listen to the voice of your being, find yourself a sit spot and sit there for 5 minutes every day. 5 minutes. The other thing you can do is pause, slow down. Don't fill the space in conversations. Leave the space. Let the space, the stillness between words, hang in the air and see what happens. I will absolutely promise you, beautiful and magical things emerge from the space when you do that. And then sit with your body and your feelings, either at the start of the day, at the end of the day. Take 5 minutes, just check in with your being. What are you feeling? What does your body want to say? And notice how in that stillness you build relationship. Notice how in that stillness you hear the voice of your being. And notice how in stillness, over time, you will get that one next step. And then take that step. That's the action. But first comes the stillness. So that's my offering to you today. The power and the potency of stillness. And an invitation to meet the stillness, invite it into your life and enjoy it, explore it, be curious. And please do let me know what you discover. I would love to hear. I would really love to hear. And as always, if you found the podcast helpful, please leave a comment, like, star it, 5-star it, or share it. Share it with a loved one or a friend. And in the meantime, have a gorgeous, beautiful week. And let's step into stillness together and be curious about what emerges. Slán, agus ciao. See you next week for more.